It was a post from Jessica Valenti. From what I know, she is a feminist author, and she was looking at a Dennis Prager tweet, something I don't recommend doing all the time. Nevertheless, it's over here. She says, "Not gonna lie, I love it when the misogyny is this pure." And she has a photo of a Dennis Prager headline, because your man's is still writing columns, and says, "Women are disproportionately hurting our country." That being the headline. Subheadline: "For those who associate women with instinctively protecting children or with being supportive of a traditionally religious life, this era in American history has provided something of a shock." Just for fun, why not? I didn't plan this, but let's just read a couple through these things really fast because it'll provide some points to make later. So let's see. Dennis Prager. Women are dis. And of course, we know Dennis Prager a lot from Prager University. Prager Topia, Prager.com, the radio show. He's around a lot, and I'll give you a lot more information, especially if you don't know Dennis Prager, in just a moment, courtesy of Dan from the Past, which a lot of you may not have seen this video. But here's some points here, and this always ends up how Dennis Prager columns begin with, so forgive me for a lot of the terrible language in general. But anyways, when I was in college, and I'm going to do a little bit of Dennis Prager here, forgive me/don't. When I was in college, I read a book by George Gilder, one of the wisest thinkers of the last half century, titled Naked Nomads, which had a deep impact on me. It was about single men and the pathologies associated with them. For example, Gilder drove home the point that the biggest factor concerning violent crime was that it was overwhelmingly committed by single men. While there was no danger, I would say no chance, that I would commit a violent crime, though I was, at the time, single, this fact, along with others in the book, made me a lifelong advocate of marriage. Dennis Prager's been divorced twice, by the way. Lifelong advocate of marriage, Dennis Prager, been divorced twice. Anyways, over the course of a lifetime, however, I've come to realize that while society was right about males, it was wrong about females, whether spoken or unspoken. Most people thought that girls just need to be raised to control their natures, just didn't need to be raised to control their natures nearly as much as boys do, but they do. Specifically, girls have to learn to control their emotions. It should be obvious that there are at least two generations of parents, especially among the well-educated, or at least two generations of parents, did not teach many of their daughters to control their emotions and think rationally. The result being that women are disproportionately active in doing damage to our society. Steaming pile of sexism here from Dennis Prager, but this is just what Dennis Prager does. This is just what he'd be about. For people who don't know about Dennis Prager, this is what he is. He says in the indoctrination of young people, as Jessica Valenti continues to go into. And who is facilitating all of this? In virtually every case, a woman. The indoctrination of young people. 92% of kindergarten teachers are women, 75% of all teachers are women, and 85% of librarians are women. Oh no, they've got the kindergarten teachers, they've got the librarians, they've got the teachers in general, they're coming for the kids. Remember I warned you about this? They're coming for the kids. It always happens in history. You gotta know this. Female teachers are also to blame for the pandemic, apparently, saying, quote, "They demanded, because of their hypochondria and apparent inability to apply reason to COVID-19 risk, that schools be closed for nearly 2 years." Which is not the case. The right wing loves to hyper-focus on stories they can find of people they can highlight who are acting to be the most extreme. But on the left, when we're highlighting stories of extremists on the right, there are patterns to be had. And a lot of times these aren't just, random one-off librarians in podunk towns or, individuals doing their own thing. No. It's people with platforms on the right who are extremists. More Prager. Just a little more Prager. Don't forget lady doctors, women physicians. Well, Jess Valenti has the lady doctors part. But the Prager part is women physicians and healthcare workers are at the vanguard of ruining young people's lives at children's hospitals that push giving young people puberty-blocking hormones and opposite gender hormones. That's a really interesting point. I'm not going to more on that later here because we need to address that right now. Because Dennis Prager is part of a number of people on the left, or sorry, Dennis Prager on the left. Left-wing Dennis Prager would have been something I would love to have heard Michael Brooks get to do. But because of people on the right, like Dennis Prager, who are creating this whole hubbub about, again, they're coming for their kids. Who was they in this case? Trans people, gay people, the LGBTQ plus community, and those who are not just outright hostile to them, are supposedly at children's hospitals pushing puberty-blocking hormones and opposite gender hormones and treatments. When you look at today, or this week, Boston Children's Hospital received a bomb threat. The police had to send a bomb squad to the Boston Children's Hospital because after weeks of harassment and right-wing campaigns targeted the hospital because they're known in the area to be really accepting and affirming of people who seek them out for gender-affirming treatment and care. These ideas that they're pushing this onto kids, or they're recruiting kids, or they're grooming kids, if stuff that is led by extremist campaigns, like the Twitter handle Libs of TikTok, that claim that the hospital offers complex gender affirmation surgery to minors. The Boston Children's Hospital said that they've been the target of a large volume of hostile internet activity, phone calls, and harassing emails, including threats of violence towards our clinicians and staff, fueled by misinformation and a lack of understanding and respect for our transgender community. Boston Children's is proud to be home of the first pediatric and adolescent transgender health program in the United States, adding on its website that all genital surgeries are only performed on patients age 18 and older, consenting adults, who can also choose to join the military or go to a trade or intern for a right-wing talk show host. Other things you can do to drastically alter your life that may make some people happy. People get nose surgeries, Botox, other cosmetic surgeries that make them feel better. You don't see right-wingers complaining about this. In fact, they're in line getting them. We all know how Los Angeles works. So this attack from Dennis Prager, it's not just sexism, it's transphobia. And it's part of a complicit thing that is leading to threats and dangers facing trans people, but also just allies, also just healthcare workers. Jessica Valenti says, the closing salvo, though, is just chef's kiss. And women who are disproportionately supportive of cancel culture, the greatest threat, women are disproportionately supportive of cancel culture, the greatest threat to free speech in American history. Put that uncut sexism right into my veins, please. And so I pointed out one of my favorite little Dennis Prager tidbits that not a lot of folks know. And honestly, let me see if I can find my reply to it. Yeah. Another certified hood classic from Dennis Prager I wrote. When a Woman Isn't in the Mood, Part 1. A Dennis Prager column from 2008. Let's break down the screenshot a little bit. You could join Pragertopia if you want to, which seems to be, maybe an advanced level of PragerU. You graduate from PragerU and get to Pragertopia, where you get your Prager home and your Prager car with your Prager phone. Mayor Prager. I'm gonna stop now. I'm just starting to get sick. You have the DP, the double penetration show. Whoopsies. And when a woman isn't in the mood, part 1. For those asking, yes, there is a part 2, and it's pretty terrible. Some folks replied with the things I didn't feel like getting into, but let's see. Yes. Part of the article reads, first, women need to recognize how a man understands a wife's refusal to have sex with him. A husband knows that his wife loves him first and foremost by her willingness to give her body to him. This is rarely the case for women. Few women know their husband loves them because he gives her his body. The idea almost sounds funny. This is therefore, it just goes on. And yeah, for those asking, there is in fact a part 2. Here's just one snippet. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but here's the idea. In the rest of life, not just in marital sex, it is almost a poor idea to allow feelings or mood to determine one behavior. Far wiser to use behavior to shape one's feelings. Act happy no matter what your mood is, and you will feel happier. Act loving, and you will feel more loving. So what does that mean, Dennis Prager? If a woman isn't in the mood, and you're a guy, and you want to convince her to get in the mood, you just nag her and pressure her to get happier or be more loving or be more in the mood, because that's coercion and that's sexual violence. If Dennis Prager is giving this advice to women, then it's saying, if you don't want to engage in these sexual actions, if you don't feel like doing it, suck it up and do it anyways, because this is the patriarchy running this bitch, quite literally. And yeah, you succumb to the desires of a man. Either way, it's not sitting great. But why am I focusing on Prager, if you're asking? Because as I teased just a moment ago, Prager is participatory in a lot of right-wing media efforts. Right now, it's the one against trans people in the LGBTQ plus community. Earlier times, like in Broadly Speaking, Dennis Prager's, hitting the hit, so to speak, is women and feminism and gender equality. Gay marriage has also been a thing Dennis Prager has been against. But why am I focusing on, this old Jewish radio show guy? Well, to answer that question, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to be playing a true Dan from the Internet classic. Now, a lot of you have maybe not seen this video, but it is a old video I made in college. It was like my magnum opus in college. It was the last video I made as a college student. And I did a deep dive into how right-wing propaganda is spread, not just in the media, but in the halls of education and the elite and think tanks. And I did it through the lens of Dennis Prager and, the Prager University videos on YouTube that were gaining a lot of prominence at the time. And I used Dennis Prager to tell the story of how this all happened. Before I get into it, I'm going to read a couple of chats, because it's been a while since I have talked to chat, honestly, and for that I do so apologize. But, yeah. Let's see. Prager, total grifter, transparent, as the letter hack says. I agree. I don't see the hook with Prager. He's bland, boring, and obviously full of garbage. How does he get platformed? Letterhack, I hope you are still watching and here, because I'm going to show you one of my oldest videos, which maybe you'll enjoy. It's Old Dan, and I'll explain to you the significance of Prager. Especially because like basically he has a lot of money. He knows how to direct that money into right-wing power. And I truly mean that in the truest sense of what is Power Report all about. We're looking at the world through the context of power. This is how Dennis Prager has wielded information power. He's truly the information power guru. Like, I see myself as kind of one of the more dry figures on the left. I'm trying to get a little bit better at that, honestly. But I have a good talent at using my connections on the left and using a little bit of political savvy to be able to get messages out there. With Pete Buttigieg and his relationship as being out of touch with black voters, for example. Certain initiatives with Bernie Sanders. There are a lot of other messages I've been able to like get out there and promote. Things relating to cannabis justice. Like on the left, I'm a lot of people who are pushing those messages. I'm where folks on the left are getting that information, especially about the weed industry. And so with that, I want to get into a really classic Dan from the Internet video. Dan from the Internet 15. So I'm about to release video 20.5 and then 21 with the next coming months. Long time coming videos. Dan from the Internet 21 is truly next level. But this was 15, which was a big production cut above what I was doing anytime before then. And so I'm really excited to watch it. I haven't really watched it in a long time. I'll do a little bit of annotating, but a little bit of just like watching along with it. And we'll get to see what I titled the time, The Secret History of PragerU and Ben Shapiro. So without further ado, we will ado over to a there.
How do you consume information? Why are you inclined to go to the sources that you go to? Most of us don't actually ask ourselves these questions, opting instead to learn passively and choose sources from force of habit. We should aspire to be conscious thinkers when consuming information, but because at best we forget to think for ourselves and at worst...
Okay, I'll finish that lineup in a bit, but yeah, check it out. This is super old Dan hours. Yeah, this got super algorithmically buried. But yeah, this is a video I made in 2018. This is my bread and butter. Dan from the Internet documentaries. There's super high quality things. Also, look how much your boy is aged. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I made this for yeah, no. I made this in 2018. So yeah, about 4 years ago. In May. So my sentence here, which I'll get back to, and I'll let it play.
Aspire to be conscious thinkers when consuming information, but because at best we forget to think for ourselves and at worst we don't care to, Dennis Prager has seized the opportunity to do the thinking for you. Hello humans, I'm Dan from the Internet, and I go to UC Berkeley, a real school. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Prager University. Not a real school. But this is bigger than one man or a single YouTube channel. This is about the hijacking of American discourse happening at the blink of an eye at scale on the endless feeds of our existence. This is about an ecosystem of cunning evangelists who shamelessly proclaim to be the last remaining champions of free speech and the marketplace of ideas. This is how Prager is poisoning politics.
That was the original title of my video. I had to like change the title a bunch because of, YouTube algorithms, blah, blah, blah. And the video did pretty good on Facebook, but it was how PragerU is poisoning politics. And I promise you it gets bigger than just this Prager YouTube channel, but let's get into the biz.
Dennis Prager started doing radio in the 1980s, preaching that Judeo-Christian values have played and must continue to play a dominant role in American history, society, and politics. After all, nothing is more un-American than the separation of church and state. My last two pieces centered on Ben Shapiro, who repackages tired right-wing talking points in exactly the way you'd expect from a lawyer running damage control for a dimwit.
Keep in mind that, again, I made this video in 2018, so Trump is still president, and really one of the first times I blew up was working with, I individually blew up, was I was working with Hassan Piker on his Facebook breakdown videos, and he was the only guy at TYT who I was able to talk to about Ben Shapiro. He was blowing up at the time as a radio host in 2016, 2017, and he was doing this, hey, I'm cautiously a Trump supporter kind of shtick that really allowed a lot of people at the time. He was a really good conduit to usher people into the extreme right. because at first he was, you know, sensible. You know, I'm not a never Trumper, an always Trumper. I'm a sometimes Trumper. You know, I look at things case by case. If it works for me, then I approve of it, and if it doesn't work for me, I disapprove of it. And it's sort of like innocuous pseudo logic that Ben Shapiro did. Sent me and Hassan in like a tizzy for a little while, and so he would make some videos. I would help him with a lot of the research on those videos, and I made Dan from the Internet 13, Ben Shapiro Can't Save the GOP, and then Dan from the Internet 14, How to Debate Ben Shapiro, kind of out of that obsession. And that's kind of how I became branded as like the Ben Shapiro expert at TYT and writ large, because I really liked focusing on these right-wing characters and how they flex their power, because I think the left can learn from it. And real talk, I think Michael Brooks was on to this idea as well, which is why he really appreciated this work and a couple other videos as well. Anyways, I was saying that Ben Shapiro is usually doing damage control for Donald Trump with a dimwit.
P.S. This report features Ben Shapiro and a puppy, so stay with me. Prager, on the other hand, is nowhere near as sophisticated or subtle, something you'd quickly realize by browsing some of his written columns, such as When I Was a Boy, America Was a Better Place, Is Donald Trump a Misogynist?, and When a Woman Isn't in the Mood, Part 1.
I love getting to do Dan from the Internet documentary projects because I get to edit them and like produce them exactly the way I picture it in my head. And like I get to use comedic timing, and I'm just blowing smoke up my own ass. But like I liked being able to just like lay out the fact that yes, Dennis Prager's been doing radio since the 80s. He dropped out of college as a history major, I believe, in the 70s. And he's been incredibly influential, wildly influential over the years. The point where him having a subtle career, like, you know, in the sidelines and the shadows, really 50 years later, makes total sense. But this sequence where I go through some of the classic Ben Shapiro articles, like
some of his written columns, such as When I Was a Boy,
America Was a Better Place. I wanted to start really nicer, but you know, Dennis Prager's not a man for subtlety, so yeah, I really went in there. Also, thank you for the saying very well done video. I really appreciate it. That's why I'm streaming right now in 4K. It's just all the platforms handle 1080p max, essentially. I do PowerPoint in 4K. I do AudioVace in 4K. I did Dan from the Internet videos in 4K since the very first one I've tried to do. I really care about high quality, and sometimes that's why my Dan from the Internet projects take so long, is because not only do I want high quality, I want every single project to be better than the last. But that being said, we will continue. But first, I want to get a photo of me doing this stuff.
Boy, America Was a Better Place. Is Donald Trump
a misogynist was actually a real question he asked in his article.
Misogynist, and When a Woman Isn't in the Mood, Part 1. In The Atlantic, Connor Friedersdorf chronicled Prager's complete 180 on Trump and his many transgressions: profanity, adultery, lying, torture, and basic moral character, which is really funny coming from the Judeo-Christian values commentator who has spent his entire broadcasting career claiming that the left is grabbing America by the morality. But back to you. As a consumer of the younger, more secular...
That was kind of a point to say that, like, Dennis Prager likes to brand himself on religious morality, but he very quickly threw that aside for Donald Trump, like many evangelicals did, because they saw the power they could potentially get by supporting someone like Donald Trump.
Internet, you probably aren't in the older, more religious target audience for Prager's radio show. Chances are, and by watching this you're giving me the data, you're under the age of 35 and enjoy this brand of flashy, sub-10-minute informational content that's become dominant for disseminating knowledge. With this in mind, PragerU was created to spread nationalistic propaganda in 5-minute chunks. That's not my hot take, that's almost their mission statement.
In 5 focused, entertaining minutes, cutting-edge media and marketing on our side for a change. Each week, we teach what isn't taught, but should be. Why America is exceptional. How capitalism promotes economic equality. How faith, reason, and science are fully compatible.
You'll see I made a lot of cuts in there because he speaks so slowly, and there are these like major pauses in this trailer to really stretch out those 5 minutes. As you'll see, PragerU videos are not that full of thought. And if you haven't seen a PragerU video, no worries. I'm going to break them down as much as you need to see here.
For time's sake, let's ignore the fact that a history major who left college in 1972 believes more than 40 years later that his extensive experience in talk radio puts his finger right on the pulse of campus climate in the 21st century. Visitors to the PragerU channel will find hours-long playlists categorized in the vein of real college majors. It's not a real school. PragerU's economics track teaches that income inequality is a good thing because it rewards success. PragerU won't tell you that the top 1% kept 24% of America's income in 2016, and that the US is way behind other Western countries in economic mobility. A philosophy major with no science background presents one of their environmental science videos, Why You Should Love Fossil Fuels, which claims that the climate science community is largely skeptical about humanity's role in rising global temperatures. They aren't. He also argues that humans are mastering nature by continuing to...
I'll focus on that quote in here and kind of like tie things up. So this guy makes a video called Why You Should Love Fossil Fuels back here. And this is like a typical PragerU fare. It's like trying to, this is a really old Prager University videos. You'll see these like graphics, right? They've gotten a little bit more advanced here. Still better than what I could do, to be fair. But like, they, on issues like climate, they rewrite things and explain it in such a way that, you know, it's calming, it's unequivocating, it's very matter of fact. And so if you don't know this information, and, you know, the American education system has been destroyed to such a manner by a lot of conservatives by design, which I'll explain later in this short video, these videos then take the place for people's foundational knowledge. And if people believe that, as Alex Epstein says, that the founding fathers wanted to master nature and therefore using fossil fuels is a good thing, I have a point of that in here.
They aren't. He also argues that humans are mastering nature by continuing to use fossil fuels. Solar, wind, nuclear, and other renewable energies, not mastering nature. Dinosaur juice, mastering nature. PragerU on race relations, you ask, for some sadistic reason? Of the interestingly few videos they have on the topic, one is the same tired whitewashing of history that Republicans use to veil the Southern strategy, in which the party deliberately courted racist Southern Democrats to gain political power. It's a part of Republican history that many party loyalists magically have amnesia over, even though in 2005 the party chair himself acknowledged and apologized for it. Prager cherry-picking from the 7% of African...
So this is another aspect as well that I kind of went through. So again, PragerU did some stuff on race relations. At the time, they had very, very few videos on it. So like that playlist, it was like 6 videos on race relations as opposed to 25 on foreign affairs, 51 on economics, 22 on religion and philosophy, 87 on political science. Again, Prager University is not a real school. It's just a YouTube channel branded as though they're giving you real education. But this stuff's powerful. These videos get millions of views like within the first week of being out there. This is like the foundational layer where people get information, and then they turn to Louder with Crowder and the Ben Shapiro Show, and I don't even want to like platform these folks by like saying their names, like Matt Walsh and all these other right-wing media types. You know, the anti-verse, so is the TYT, so to speak, and a lot of like leftist media. And this is part of that ecosystem. So like now you have, what is it? The Gravel Institute, which is kind of the counter programming to Prager University. But even at this time, the Gravel Institute didn't exist. There was no counter programming like this on the left. There was no way the left had a similar, you know, YouTube, Vox explainer style, let's be real about it, propaganda effort. And that stuff, kind of stuff is important. You know, TYT is structured for, as a business, it's structured to make these kinds of TV shows, so to speak, right? But there are some phenomenal YouTube, there's like other formats. Like there's Twitch streaming, of course, which we're doing here now, which is a little bit more conducive to a live show, so people are doing that. But YouTube documentaries and, you know, these like bred to political explainers and these like deep dive things that folks go into, it's a really big portion of what people watch and where people get their political education at a time when government civics classes are being cut down. So I say all that to say I'll continue playing the video, but it's very important to see the effect of using the internet and using content as propaganda for good, potentially.
Have on the topic. One is the same tired whitewashing of history that Republicans use to veil the Southern strategy, in which the party deliberately courted racist Southern Democrats to gain political power. It's a part of Republican history that many party loyalists magically have amnesia over, even though in 2005 the party chair himself acknowledged and apologized for it. Prager cherry-picking from the 7% of African Americans who identify with Republicans is a textbook case of the old "I'm not a racist, my son has a black friend" ploy. I chatted with Marcus, who hosts the Uncorrupted Report on YouTube. Subscribe to it because he's intelligent, skillful, and goes into more depth debunking PragerU than I ever really want to. He helped me get a sense of the patterns in PragerU videos.
They pretend, and they always try to make it seem like they respect the other side and that they've actually considered the other.
I was about to wear that shirt today. That's really funny. I found out that it was dirty when it was actually clean, so I didn't. But I still have that shirt. I've cut the sleeves off of it, actually. I don't have that monitor anymore. I gave it away. I wonder... I do love that Hunter S. Thompson poster. I do love that Gorillaz poster. I don't know where either of those are, but I don't have most of those things. I think the only thing I have over there still... Yeah, nothing immediately available. I have a different, shinier clipper lighter. I have the same lens that I used, like, this had on the side there to my arm right there. My arms have gotten, like, a little bit better, like, a little bit. And, yeah. I have Bluetooth headphones now. I have these headphones now. So, you know, we've upgraded a little bit. I shot this one on my phone, I remember, actually. So that's funny. But anyways.
Other side, and that they aren't approaching a topic with confirmation bias.
He explains.
Yeah, and if you watch all PragerU and you're more inclined to the right, I think this is ultimately their main goal, is to make it seem as though right-wing conservatism in general is sort of perfect, and that everything bad that's ever happened has been a cause of the left.
Thanks to the addiction algorithms YouTube, Facebook, and other online platforms utilize to show you more of what you want to see, this warped, unrealistic message can reach millions of young minds. It works so well because of something that Prager has understood about politics long before PragerU fans were born. Which reminds me of something. I promise you...
This is the juicy part. So thank you for watching. This is the juicy part. Halfway through the video, where you understand why I'm obsessing about Dennis Prager. Maybe I should do a better job as a host of, like, waiting until, 45 minutes in to tell you why I'm explaining Dennis Prager, but there's a point here.
A puppy, and I try not to disappoint. So here's Ben Shapiro with a puppy awkwardly sandwiched next to his lap while Dennis Prager lights a cigar. Not much seems surprising. Shapiro even does the thing again.
Not to brag, but the most widely listened to conservative podcast in America.
But this exchange actually had me shook.
By the way, is it fair to say that I had a role in your life prior to your being born?
Yeah, absolutely. My parents started becoming Orthodox in that direction by listening to your show.
So I have a long time in the Shapiro family, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I listened to your show from the time I was capable of listening to talk radio, so...
Which is, with you, was what, about 3?
Well, in utero. Yeah,
utero.
Everyone's
Chat. I need y'all to shout out in chat. Please tell me you understood what I was trying to highlight in that video. That Dennis Prager is the Ben Shapiro origin story. Ben Shapiro's parents listened to the Dennis Prager show, the Dennis Prager radio show. Hell, much the same way my parents listened to Air America radio. And that's how I heard Janine Garofalo, Stephanie Miller, Mark Maron, Sam Cedar. That's how these names float in the back of my head. Dennis Prager is that. He is the godfather of the Republican right-wing media right now.
political beliefs, yours and mine, come from our deeply held morals.
Let me get that clean.
Everyone's political beliefs, yours and mine, come from our deeply held morals. When religion becomes intertwined into political conversations, political beliefs must satisfy moral/religious ones, giving pundits the opportunity to either swap out actual evidence for values and history or misconstrue the evidence to fit a worldview. Matt Grossman and David A. Hopkins, real political scientists, published a book called Asymmetric Politics that contextualizes this well. Yes, they talk about how university professors, scientists, and journalists tend to lean left. Yes, this bias holds true for me. But shifting to the right, they found the GOP actually used to have a neutral view on the press. Then, in the 1960s, things got shaken up. Republican Party activists and evangelical leaders attacked the press and fanned the flames of tribalism. Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater took on this strategy for himself, clinching the presidential nomination in 1964. The party's elites saw the political gain that could be achieved by eroding public confidence in research, the media, and universities.
Barry Goldwater, 1964 Republican presidential nominee. Ultimately did not win, of course. We don't have a former President Goldwater. But what we do have is the playbook for running your campaign and your election and ultimately your party and everything downstream from that party on the basis of eroding trust in institutions. Why would you listen to a crank like Dennis Prager or Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, any of the other unmentionables? Why would you even bother listening to them? Super simple reason. Because they've told you that mainstream media can't be trusted. They've appealed to your worst fears and angers and sentiments and discontents and created an us versus them. And for some people out there, it's worked. And it's worked very, very well. All too well. To play and poke on those fears and those resentments and to literally turn it into content. But to go the step further, because before there was internet content, there was just campaigns and radio spots and ads and TV ads. But then going the extra mile for power. Think tanks. Institutes. Donations to universities. Small schools of universities. That all feed into each other, that feed into an ecosystem. The Republicans want an expert to point to, so they can say they have an expert to point to that proves everything they're talking about. They can go to someone who's been funded by this ecosystem, who's by this apparatus. They want a strategist, they can go to this ecosystem. They want a federal court justice. They can use this ecosystem. This is more than just Dennis Prager. But because this ties to folks like Dennis Prager, I'm not saying he is the grand puppet master, but he does understand how to play the strings, how to control the puppets, how to make a media message spread. It's a Steve Bannon dark art type thing. It's honestly something I would like to master for good in some type of way. That is the thing that makes Prager powerful, and that's what makes the right wing powerful.
Not only have they been going at it ever since, they've been creating their own entities to replace the ones they're trying to destroy. Now, PragerU is not an accredited institution, but it is part of a larger apparatus that's built to serve the interest of billionaires and corporations. I'm not saying there's some elaborate conspiracy just because Dennis the Menace chuckled while ruminating about his lifelong influence on rising Republican talking head Ben Shapiro in a literal dark smoke-filled room. The evidence is almost as conspicuous though, and I forgot to tell you, there's money in it too. Ben Shapiro, Adam Carolla, Steven Crowder, and Charlie Kirk, just to scratch the surface, are all contributors to PragerU, sharing and growing each other's audiences by weaving the same message into their respective shticks. Crowder reaches over 1.5 million people on his personal YouTube channel, which has featured Prager numerous times. He's also not funny. Change my mind in the comments, trolls. Carolla hosts a popular podcast and is collaborating with Prager on the documentary No Safe Spaces, the kind of campus publicity stunt that more and more college students are beginning to see through thanks to content like this. Why not share this video?
You see that little note I put? Hassan Piker made me shameless. Like, fucking even in 2018, was it? Yes, even in 2018, I'm doing this. And you can see, video upload date, 2018. Yeah.
Why not share this video? Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, which boasts the weakest meme game of all time.
No, these are actual Turning Point USA memes. Like, now Turning Point USA memes are a meme, but these were the original ones that made it really bad, right? Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. From Charlie Kirk.
This meme game of all time received 200.
If you hate capitalism but use an iPhone, read a Kindle, watch movies on Netflix, take a ride with Lyft, etc., you might be a hypocrite. These were their memes at the time in 2017. This is what they were doing before they were hosting dramatic sort of like things on the right wing, like this Turning Point's action stuff. They're making these shitty memes in 2018. I'm so glad I documented this because I want Dan from the Internet videos to stand the test of time. I want to be able to, like, I made it so that I could watch it years from now and be able to go, the kid was right. And, yeah, I'll say I did a pretty good job here. Again, I didn't watch this before planning this. I haven't seen this video in years now. So, pretty good, I'll say.
$175,000 over a 2-year period from...
Let's get this fact in here. It's really important.
Kirk's Turning Point USA, which boasts the weakest meme game of all time, received $275,000 over a 2-year period from conservative mega donor Richard Euling, who is a top donor to the super PAC of unpunished child molester for Senate Roy Moore. Euling has already donated $14.8 million in 2018, according to the Center for Responsive Politics, and the midterm election season has just barely started. Remember philosopher bro Alex Epstein from that fossil fuels video? He's the president and also founder of the Center for Industrial Progress, a rare for-profit think tank.
He's the chair and founder of, what is it? The Center for Industrial Progress, which is a for-profit think tank. So the guy started his own climate change denial factory. He owns and operates it. Overalls and all. And he's treated as an expert on the same level of a university professor, a college professor, the same type of college professors that these people rail against all the time. This is their replacement. Turn around. This is their king. And this is what they mean by a culture war. I'm going to explain that point here.
And also founder of the Center for Industrial Progress, a 0.8 from that fossil fuels video. He's the president and also founder of the Center for Industrial Progress, a rare for-profit think tank, which was also in a subpoena against ExxonMobil in 2016. ExxonMobil's CEO at the time was Rex Tillerson, Trump's freshly ousted Secretary of State. Dan and Ferris Wilks, who sold their fracking company in 2011 for $3.5 billion, donated to help start PragerU, and they might have gotten a return on their investment. That ridiculous fossil fuel video was literally made possible by fossil fuel billionaires not like you.
PragerU and was started and funded by these same fracking billionaires.
Dan and Ferris Wilks.
They gave the seed funding to Ben Shapiro, who then used that to start the Ben Shapiro show, which became the Daily Wire, which became Forward Publishing or whatever the hell holdings company Ben Shapiro has for his brands. That came from fracking money from the same brothers who gave Dennis Prager money to start PragerU. Because these fracking guys, they don't need to make content. They need to make TikToks. They need to go on YouTube. They don't need to go on Fox Business unless they really, really have to. They have people who are frothing at the mouth, like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, etc., to make this propaganda for them. They just need to sign a check. This is a phenomenal investment to buy the minds of young voters, to spark the vitriol in this country, and to be layers and layers and layers removed from it. These are the guys. These are just a few of the guys. We talk about the Koch brothers. We should talk about the Wilkes brothers as well.
At the time was Rex Tillerson, Trump's freshly ousted Secretary of State. Dan and Ferris Wilkes, who sold their fracking company in 2011 for $3.5 billion, donated to help start PragerU, and they might have gotten a return on their investment. That ridiculous fossil fuel video was literally made possible by fossil fuel billionaires not like you. The brothers also own and fund the Daily Wire, Shapiro's news outlet, which happens to stand against scientific consensus on climate change. In the Republican Party machine, the super wealthy dump money into think tanks, interest groups, media outlets, and campaigns to put their fingers on the scales of our political system. Republican-tested, big business-approved talking points vertically integrated into our political discourse, all with the same underlying message: trust no institutions but ours. The icing on the cake? Many of these donations are tax-deductible. It's privatized propaganda being pumped into the brains of America's next army of voters in a way that George Orwell couldn't have dreamt up if he dropped 10 tabs of acid. The right wing has made a caricature of Berkeley and college campuses.
I love the
at
ending
large.
sequence.
The news vans aren't here when things are business as usual, when professors are exposing tomorrow's future leaders to the complexities of our society. Numerous avenues exist for students to express their views, for the public to commend or critique. The same is true at all universities, at least the real ones. But PragerU is not a university. It's a nexus for hardline conservative messaging that closes minds and builds upon tribal identities while accusing political opponents of doing the same. It's a vicious cycle that can put violently extreme ideologies just an autoplay away. Humans, this is serious. Carefully consider how and where you consume information, and don't allow those with financial or political motivations to make those decisions for you. You don't need to imagine what it might be like to live in a world where people rejected all but their own sources of information. We live in that world today, and your diligence is more important than ever.
Oh, why was I so right? That sounds a little bit like jerk-offy, but like, I made that in 2018, and it's literally all only gotten worse. And yeah, this was a little bit before that last sequence where I'm showing Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo Yiannopoulos is one of my early videos, which, I mean, if I could rename that video and like re-upload it and do it all again, I'd call the Milo Yiannopoulos video I did, which was like Dan from the Internet 11 or 12, like the case for why deplatforming works. Because it was how Milo Yiannopoulos was appearing at UC Berkeley and being canceled from UC Berkeley as a tool to further his bad faith agenda item that he was being censored for just telling the truth. The truth was a bunch of flamboyantly provocative, untrue things. However, it was a way of garnering attention while also claiming the victim, while also attacking people. And it was a complicated thing that a lot of people fell for. Folks like Barry Weiss are still making their careers pretending to fall for this trick. And I was calling them out back then. I'll point out that Barry Weiss is one of the people that I like point to in the very beginning of this video. Hold on. I must have just missed the thing, but yep, first person. There. I was criticizing her then because it was clear that she was paving a way for these kinds of people. By equating the left that was defending the marginalized against the right who was gaming free speech in order to attack the marginalized. And to get centrists on their side, who claimed to be liberal, who then became ammo for these right-wingers to say, look, we have liberals on our side. Even the liberals are abandoning these freaks. So let's do whatever we want to marginalize communities. Alas, that's the old Dan from the Internet. I'm not making videos like that anymore. You heard it here first. I don't want to do political explainers in that way, or at least appealing to this audience. I want to expand, again, I'm thinking on a Dennis Prager, Steve Bannon kind of level of the left. My challenge to myself for Dan from the Internet, because I already am very happy with the production value of what I do. I think it's above and beyond what is on YouTube right now. It's just about marketing these things and getting it to the audience. Now it's how do I expand the audience beyond people who care about politics into issues that are inherently political that I can contextualize from a leftist perspective. it's a lot to do at once, and it is more narrative driven than it is visual driven, because now I think the visuals are easy for me. Now it's just weaving in a narrative and weaving in the presentation, the marketing, so that it all comes together. And with that, we have the end of the main portion of Power Report. Now we'll do the Memberoonie stuff. I guess I'll stream this live to everyone because I like the live audience that's here right now. Appreciate y'all who are here. Where can we find that video? So if you go to my page, youtube.com/Dan from the internet, I have a couple different playlists called Welcome to Dan from the Internet. And it's under Dan from the Internet High Quality Political Explainers. I'm going to rename them because they're really mini documentaries. They're the first season of Dan from the Internet, videos 1 through 20, I've decided these are video essays of me trying to write messages to send to the future. So yeah, you can click on that playlist and you can see all my videos from my very first one. Sandy, there's a reason I didn't play this one. This is the video I'm embarrassed of. This is my very first Dan from the Internet video. I shot it on my phone. It's 2 minutes. It's very bad. I don't think it's my most flattering content creation moments, but nevertheless, they are on. That's Dan from the Internet 1. This was like me trying to create a new kind of content thing that I would ultimately be happy with long term. And these take a lot of effort to produce, and so that's why they happen once or twice a year. And in the meantime, I am doing Power Report, Audio Face, Good Morning Bad News, and appearances out there just to stay in people's attention, just to grab some eyeballs here and there. But Dan for the Internet, these documentaries, this is my pride and joy. This is what I want to do. And this is what I'm ultimately turning into a larger thing. And so yeah, these video series, I've done 20 of them officially so far. From out there topics like, is Soylent the future of food? To, I was covering America's gun problems, Dan from the Internet 4. Defending Black Lives Matter. Here's a fun one. I got to shoot this one. Do you recognize this? I got to shoot this one in 2016 in the TYT studios. They let me do a little DFTI graphics package, and I was able to make and edit my video the way I wanted to. I definitely do different cuts and things like that, but yeah, this turned out pretty good. I like this. Looking back, like, damn, this is really high quality, but I think I even made some mistakes in this video that definitely like taught me some things. I did some experimental ideas with some of my friends where I'm like doing a more artsy style political thing. I started venturing in. I did one the night of the election, essentially, about like what people could do afterwards. This was in the streets of Berkeley. That was like really kind of fun to shoot and write. I wonder why it's taking so long to load, considering everything. Had my friend shoot this for me. They started getting into takedown video. I did a Bill O'Reilly one, which was fun to do, but Bill O'Reilly is, of course, out of the limelight. Then, like I said, there's my Milo Yiannopoulos video. And then this was the one that really got me off the map. Ben Shapiro can't save the GOP. We will definitely... Maybe I'll do this a little bit more in the future, where we do some more rewatching some Dan classics. I won't rewatch Bad News anytime soon. Bad News is the season finale / the turning point of when I decided I wanted to stop doing political video essays and I wanted to kind of change into doing not just more consistent political content in the forms of Power Report Live, Good Morning Bad News, etc., but also that, again, I wanted Dan from the Internet, and I still do want Dan from the Internet to be a documentary series that expands the universe of people who are interested in politics. I want to inspire people to become political junkies. I want to inspire people to figure out how to become activists and make a difference. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do that if I continued to make video essays in this style, but definitely Dan from the Internet 20, this one up here, is the best video essay style thing, breadtube style thing I have done and will ever attempt to do. So yeah. While I shuffle and switch gears here, and I appreciate, definitely thank you, Letterhack, for watching. Literally just doing the show for you. Makes it worth it, especially if you haven't seen that video before, because yeah, I think it's a good one just to know more about Prager and the real details about what he's all about, and to see how power works. Michael Brooks and I had some of these conversations in private. Unfortunately, there's no, like, I'm not showing the DMs, and yeah, these weren't recorded conversations, but when I didn't want to do a daily show and I didn't believe in myself in doing this kind of things, Michael Brooks kind of gave me the motivation to, but this isn't a story about that, and this won't be a long story. This is more about the idea that Michael Brooks and I were constantly talking about how we're envious of how the right wing builds media power and like shows that through all different kinds of institutions. Through, like we said, they take over the judiciary, they take over think tanks, they get professors on their side, they get entire fake universities like the University of Austin or whatever the hell they're doing, Liberty University, Prager University. These things run rampant left and right, and so where is this on the left? They're constantly saying that, the left has control over the schools and the colleges and all those other things. No, we don't. I had to convince professors when I was in my school that, like, TYT was a reputable enough news source to be able to reference if we were referencing BuzzFeed or The Hill. And students agreed with me because they were students there who watched TYT. Like, the professors there are not liberal. They're not on the left. They're not understanding that there's like a larger game being played here where you have to play the media, you have to play halls of government or whatever to get your political messages forward, and especially just to fight entities who are working against you. So that's all top of mind stuff as I'm thinking about. Left the box says you helped to inspire me. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Letterhack, I'm sharing that video around. Thank you.